At a time when Queenslanders are banned from coming home,
it's really hard not to just curl up in a ball and cry.
I don't have anywhere else to live.
why has the Premier prioritised a sporting entourage over everyday Queenslanders?
It is just disgraceful. It is disgraceful.
It's a kick in the guts for stranded Queenslanders. Around 100 NRL officials, wives, girlfriends and kids jet setting in from Sydney at a time when hotspot arrivals are supposed to be on pause.
You cannot make this up. One rule for some, another rule for others.
We want people to come home when it's safe to do so.
Yep, they only want people coming in when it's safe, or when it's footy finals time, or when there's a cricket comp on. Those guys got exemptions too.
I didn't grant the exemptions. The Chief Health Officer granted the exemptions.
The Premier offloading responsibility in a textbook hospital pass to the CHO as she offered her assurances.
We have made that very, very clear that the exemptions are separate to that cap.
But the fact that the NRL organised its own bubble outside Queensland's hotel quarantine system is cold comfort for those stuck on the outside.
It's absolutely atrocious. I feel like unless I'm married to an athlete of some sort, I'm just a second-class citizen.
Stranded Queenslanders accusing the government of double standards.
It sounds like if you've got money or you've got some sort of link to the government, that's the only way you're going to get in. The regular person has no way of getting around it.
Families remaining separated, businesses in strife, lives in limbo as our sports stars once again sail on through.
If there's room for sporting families, there's room for Queensland families. End of story.
Well, Natalie Victor runs the Facebook group Homeless Outside Queensland due to border restrictions, and she joins us now. Natalie, you got into hotel quarantine just before the border shut, but your hubby's stuck on the other side. How are you guys going?
Yeah, look, it's been very difficult and demoralising with so much uncertainty. We've been displaced for now 5 weeks. Hubby's still at the border with the dogs, and the plan was then to get him to do hotel quarantine when I was out. But of course, that's now been put on hold with absolutely no clarity of when and how this will all work and how long it will take as well. So it's been quite hard financially because we have to spend so much more money, and then of course mentally as well because of the uncertainty.
What are some of the other stories you're hearing across that Facebook group?
Yeah, look, we created the group about 2 weeks in and we thought, well, who else is in the same situation? And we were surprised by the hundreds and hundreds of families that are affected by this. There are so many heartbreaking stories of people being displaced and now homeless, living in tents, in their cars and in caravans with no running water or electricity. A lot of people have been financially ruined. And a lot of their kids are now not able to get the childcare needed for special needs and also education. So every day it's a heartbreaking story, and all we can do is support each other through this very tricky time.
Well, given all those stories, what was your first reaction when you heard that the NRL's families and some officials were going to be allowed in?
Oh, look, to be honest with you and very frank, we were outraged. Myself, very disappointed and angry that those rooms are now taken by a sports federation. And it almost feels like sport is more important than people's livelihoods and homelessness.
Natalie, the Queensland government are saying that the NRL bubble is outside the hotel quarantine, so it's not putting any extra pressure on the system, which is why it's been allowed. How does that explanation sit with you?
It doesn't sit really well. Those same rooms would be using the same resources and putting pressure on those resources needed for those returning residents. So in all intents and purposes, the whole group feels like it's an absolute cop-out, and it's really unfair to everyone that this has now happened.
Natalie, what do you think the solution is? Like, if you were the government and you were having to take into account all the considerations, and there are a few here at play, what do you think is a viable solution?
Look, everybody on our group is all about following the rules and also making sure that we keep the community safe and COVID at bay. The solution, we believe, is home quarantine. There is no other solution, and allowing people to cross the border with their cars and their pets and their family that can't fly or can't afford to fly and do the home quarantine and also are happy to be vaccinated. So it's not about not following the rules, it's about how we follow the rules and how those solutions can be found.
All right, Natalie, we'll hang in there. Yeah, hopefully things change soon, but for now we appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
It's such a heartbreaking situation that Natalie finds herself in, and so many others as well. I can understand it. I'm from Queensland. I haven't seen my family. I think I've seen them once in the last 2 years because of COVID. But with these border restrictions, I understand the gripe with a perceived double standard with football players being allowed in, but not only football players, now their families being allowed in. The key here is that it is in a separate situation, so it's a facility. It's not taking away any spots from people who would theoretically be allowed an exemption to hotel quarantine. And also I think the key is that hopefully the home quarantine situation that we're seeing in South Australia, that trial, the Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk says they're very interested in the success of that. What's tough, this doesn't help anyone in these situations like Natalie, the tough thing is that there's no certainty for them, while I think at the moment for the NRL's family and some of these officials that there is at least some certainty right now.
Yeah, and I can totally understand why she would call for the home quarantine thing.
Yeah. But
at the same time, I can't imagine a Premier saying, I'm going to go ahead with this while there's a trial and we don't have the result of that trial. Yes. Imagine if they did that and then there was an outbreak, it didn't work. We'd be having a very different conversation.
I think there's a lot of stressed families too because of how quickly that hard border became. There's a lot of stranded people.
Yes, and I think there are legitimate questions to be asked about some of the people that aren't getting in.
Yeah.
I see the NRL thing. I just think it's sort of a different category of issue. Yeah. From expert opinions to in-depth analysis and reporting, the Project YouTube brings you the biggest stories from Australia and around the globe. Hit the subscribe button now for news delivered straight to your feed.